Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
Like, it felt like I loved feeling your energy. Like,
that's what every guy feels. They love the first couple of months of dating me because it's great. The energy is just so fucking great. Like, I get it. I've heard that before. Your energy is different from mine. I haven't seen it as a negative. I've seen it as, there are times where I do need to fucking relax and calm down and just like chill on the couch and watch TV. But it's like, I can vision it. I can literally see it.
Okay, we're getting a little bit of detail about their energy, and she is framing it as that she's more energetic or more high-strung or something, and that he is more of a chill and watch TV on the couch. And so she's saying, I'm okay with adjusting my energy and seeing our energies as being different, but you're not okay with it. That's what I think she's saying.
It's like, why can't you see it? It's like, you already know. You've already made up your mind. Like, you already know that, like, I'm too much to live with.
These 3 weeks is all I have.
But you don't even, you can't see beyond that. You can't see,
because I don't want to make assumptions. Like, I don't want to, like,
but we're in control of our future.
We can't say what that's going to look like because it's like we haven't lived it.
Yeah, so she is rational in her observation that it sounds like you've made up your mind. I think she might be saying that out loud to remind herself or to put that out there in the conversation, because the way that the conversation would be received falsely is that this is a discussion where you're trying to figure something out. And it doesn't seem like that's what's happening, right? And it didn't seem that way from the beginning, really, when I was hearing the way that he was talking about these things. So, yeah, it's hard. You know, it's a breakup scene. It's hard to watch someone like Marissa getting dumped, and she is such a sweetheart on the show, and you know, you hate to see her beat herself up and think that there's something deeply wrong with her. So yeah, it's painful to watch.
I think you should not have come to this experience because, like, Ramses, it's very clear that you need to, like, live with someone for a long time before you even
This 3 weeks would have been fine. It would have been enough time. Just like I couldn't anticipate that I was gonna arrive at this point and like I wasn't gonna like feel the way that I feel or have the conversation.
Yeah, I think it is a viable point to make, and Marissa isn't attacking him really. She's just saying, I think you shouldn't have been, and I even said something earlier along those lines, and that is a viable thing to say. It's also possible that he just didn't know how it was going to feel. I think that's understandable because you've never been through it. But, the other possibility is that if they did gel better, at least from his perspective, then he might have actually been up for it, right? But did he just say these last 3 weeks? What did he say?
This 3 weeks would have been fine.
This 3 weeks. Yeah, I keep in my head thinking that the post-getaway time is longer than that. Because I think at this point it's just just days away from the wedding. And yeah, it sounds like they only get maybe like 4 weeks post-getaway. And the getaway is, I think, maybe like 5 days, and then the pods is 10. So everything from beginning to end, it's like 6 weeks. And that's not a lot of time. Like, just tack on another month. And I feel like I remember the first season or two it being 2 months or 3 months, but I could be wrong about that.
It would have been enough time. Just like I couldn't anticipate that I was gonna arrive at this point and like I wasn't gonna like feel the way that I feel or have the conversations.
I anticipated it the moment you have the conversations with other people.
So we talk about ethical dumping, and it would be helpful if he were to apologize. Who knows how she would take it, but that's my impulse right now, is to tell him, be clear if you can, because you're not being clear. Are you breaking up right now? Because if you are, then be clear. 2 is to exhibit and identify with your own sorrow and communicate that. Don't, it's implied by the way that he's communicating, but it could be more emphasized of just like, I am so sorry that this happened. Maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't have gone on. I honestly went on the show thinking that I was ready for this, and maybe I'm not. I don't know. I obviously have a lot of issues about my past marriage, and maybe I don't know myself well enough, or I don't know. I thought I was ready, and when we got engaged, I thought I was ready, and there was more time, and I'm just so sorry that I changed my mind or something. I don't know how I got to this place exactly, but I don't feel ready to marry. I'm just not at that point, and I know that this is just so hurtful, and you're the last person on the planet that I would want to hurt. I'm just so sorry. I just don't know what else to do. I just felt like I just really wanted to tell you. And maybe I was overly swayed by these other people. I don't know. But I do know that I think it's best. I'm just not ready. I'm just not ready to take that leap. And you deserve to have someone who is ready to do that. I'm just so sorry. Just something along those lines. Hopefully you can say something.
For the first time, I was like 100% myself. I feel like I've been like the most understanding person. How could I feel so sure and you not, I just like want someone to be sure about me. Just want someone to choose me, right? Like,
I did fall in love with you for who you are. Like, I did love your energy.
Okay. So his passiveness it's edited, so who knows, but in terms of the edits, this is, I think, in a similar vein as when they were talking about the military stuff, and he would just kind of be blank and say like, well, and it comes across as cold. And as she's crying, he's looking with empathy, but he could say something just like, yeah, I'm just so sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. And instead of what I think he's doing right now is trying to tell his perspective or reassure her that he did fall in love with her, but that's not reassuring to her, because her narrative is, yeah, people fall in love with me at the beginning and then they get to know me better and they immediately break up with me. This isn't helping. I'd rather have people not fall in love with me than fall in love with me and get me to, and suck me in and then, break up with me a month later. That's not helpful. But, I want to commend Marissa for, in this moment, having a very human and vulnerable expression that doesn't have any defenses or any pretense or any problem. There's nothing, there's no complex there that is preventing her from being herself and expressing her feelings. She is doing that, and that's healthy. It's helpful for her to just, and it's a sign that she has differentiation, maturity, and wisdom, and emotional regulation, and enough self-esteem to be able to, and she's been raised well enough to be able to trust and know her emotions. In that moment, she's just like, oh, this is just so painful. And it's interesting to hear her. She's saying that she is sure that he is the one. Because you never know, right, if people are sure or not. And she's saying, I was all in. I knew that you were the one. And she's, also saying, like, how can that be? And, we often will hear people on the show express that sentiment. We have this belief that if we are in love and we have enough reasons to believe that the other person is feeling similarly and we're on the same page, that if we later learn that the other person isn't, super in love with us, or isn't maybe in love with us at all, or doesn't have that vision of the future that we do, then we question our love for them. We're like, well, how could I love someone that didn't love me back in that way? That doesn't make any sense. But it depends on what we mean by love, I guess. But those aren't mutually exclusive. You can love someone and the other person can have a different sort of love for you, especially if you're operating on assumptions that are not necessarily reflective of what's happening with the other person, either because you're deluding yourself, the other person isn't being communicative, or the other person is trying to change it about themselves or whatever. So I say all this because I think it could be damaging to an individual to think that they were grossly mistaken about their state of loving someone else. Now, ideally, it's mutual, right? That the love happens mutually. But yeah, especially in a situation like this, you can absolutely, I would imagine most of us have loved someone who did not, at least for a time, love us back in the way that we thought that they were, or the way that we thought was necessary for love to happen. You know, it's almost like this spiritual thing. Like, in order to feel love, someone, in order to feel like overwhelming, full commitment love, the other person has to have that for us. It's like it fuels each other. And in a sense, that is true, but it isn't always true.
Like, all of that was part of the reason why, like, we bonded. At the end of the day, like, we couldn't tell, like what exactly that would look like in person.
Yeah, I think Ramses is an over-intellectualizer. It's a very common thing, especially when I take all of his language into consideration. Over-intellectualizers will often cite logic as an important thing to follow, which, as I've talked about previously, it's not wrong to do that. But the way he's reacting right now, he is cold, I would say, and distant and intellectualizing, and not just living in emotion and just saying, oh, what do I feel right now? I feel ashamed of myself. I feel so sorry for you. I feel, demoralized, whatever. But he goes into his head. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So it's time for Thanksgiving. And in my family, we always have a really big Thanksgiving. My dad always gets us into a circle before dinner, and we hold hands, and we each give thanks for things in our lives. And afterwards, I always feel really uplifted. Research has actually shown that giving gratitude is associated with a lot of positive mental health outcomes, and also with positive health benefits like improved sleep and improved immune system. Therapy can be a great place to explore our gratitude. There are likely positive aspects of ourselves that we don't see that a therapist can help us to discover, and then we can have gratitude even for things about ourselves. Well, one place you can find a therapist is at BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. So let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
I just don't know how we go from like how we were like 2 days ago to this. It's literally insane.
There's nothing like left to be said then.
Yeah. I wish, and maybe they cut it out. I don't think they did, but he could have expressed more sorrow. You can break up with someone and be pretty sure of it and still have tremendous sorrow for how the other person is feeling because you are doing something that you think is right and that you think is even best for the other person. You can still have empathy and you can still have sorrow. It doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that you care about another human being.
It's the worst day of my life.
That's nice. What is he wearing? Each to their own. But what? Each to their own. What do I care? Why should we care? But okay, so but that's nice. She walks up and hugs him, which is good on her. He could have done it himself. They're having this moment, which is more evidence that Marissa is a very healthy and open and trustworthy person, someone who doesn't have the complexes and defenses around being vulnerable and isn't overly concerned with pride or preserving the way that she looks, because a lot of people in her shoes would say like, well, I don't want to give him the satisfaction of going there over there and hugging him right now. Instead, she's just operating on her needs and her instincts, and she needs to hug him right now, which I think is not everyone in the situation would need that or want that, but I think it is evidence of her being, what adjective do I put to it? Her being healthy. That's a very healthy thing to do.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking. And then he says, I'm sorry. I'm glad that came out. She's asking, are you sure? Are you sure?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, God, it's heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. I don't know if we've seen a scene like this on the show. I don't think we've ever seen a scene like this. And I'll commend both of them, really. You go into it hoping, you fall in love, you get engaged, you're hoping, and you try it out for a few weeks, and it's for one person, it's just not looking like it's going to work, and you tell the other person before you get to the altar, and you don't put the other person and everyone's family through it. You just like up front, and he's been fairly passive. If she weren't as good as a communicator, then I don't know if she would receive what he's saying, but because she had to read between the lines quite a bit, even in this moment, right? Are you sure? And then he says, I'm so sorry. That's not answering the question, buddy. But read between the lines, and it's saying something, right? I assume. Yeah. So So his passive communication is still at play here, and it. As long as it's coming across, then all's well that ends well.
I think you're making a mistake. I think this is a big mistake. I believe that wholeheartedly, and I can't convince you otherwise. Like, I don't know, but I just know this is not right. Like, this is not right. It's like the worst heartbreak I've ever experienced. It hurts.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt, and I imagine all of us have been through this, maybe more than once, and she's going through it, and it hurts, and she's recognizing that and feeling it, and it's grief, it's loss, it's pain. She's feeling it, and he's there witnessing it. He could exhibit a little more warmth, but I've seen worse reactions from people in his shoes. And kudos to her for expressing it on camera, because I don't think we would normally see it. I mean, it's up to her, but it's certainly not anything to be ashamed of. And if it's how she feels, then it's how she feels. And it's going to hurt. And I'm glad that, given the circumstances, I have to talk about ethical breaking up, and this is often a part of it, that the individual being broken up with feels the feelings and the other person is a witness to it. I wonder what this is going to do to him if he was already having some sort of journey around learning that his ex-wife was in a lot of pain, because he's witnessing Marissa go through a lot of pain right now. So I wonder what's going on with him with that, because it's possible that he has a history of being made to feel ashamed or getting close. And if he is avoidantly attached, which I don't have a lot of evidence for, but there's a possibility that he is more on the distant side. They're talking about their energies and how he wants his space. There's some minor ticks in the column of avoidant attachment. And for those individuals, they will have a theme in their relationships in which they do hurt other people through distance and through breaking up. In fact, the fact that he's breaking up could be considered possibly a tick in that column of avoidant attachment, in that when avoidantly attached individuals will run into a snag or a complication in a relationship, their first reactivity is a strong urge to break up or leave or distance or something. They are convinced that that is the best way. They have convinced themselves since they were 2 years old that they want relationships, but they don't really need them, and they can function on their own. They think, actually, they can't deep down, meaning that they have the normal amount of need for attachment and closeness and intimacy, but they deny it because they had to when they were young. So I wonder what's going on with him. But for the two of them, this is a really great example of healthy breaking up. This situation is going to be painful, and it's going to have messiness to it. And she's hurt, and we don't usually see this. What I think often happens on the show is that a breakup will happen, but the Marissas of the show won't show us at all what's going on. And it'll just be discussed or thought about in our minds, normally reacted to. And then we just aren't exposed to this. We don't see it. It's happening either internally or externally away from the camera. And I wonder what the audience reaction, how it differs in this situation because she's showing it. I could see people having a lot of identification with her because of it, which would make sense. I could see people getting more angry at Ramses than they would otherwise. I could see people thinking that she's weak, I guess, because she's displaying this emotion. There's no weak. This is a lot of strength. She got engaged. She fell in love, y'all. She's gonna feel pain. And for her to express it is one of the healthiest things I've ever seen on the show, honestly. It sucks, but life sucks sometimes, and romance sucks sometimes. Don't put that on a T-shirt. Although, I don't know. It's just, without this, it isn't as glorious when we finally meet our person.
Better. No one to.
I just feel like I'm done. I don't know. I don't know.
And there's a possibility that some trauma is being touched on. We don't know any details, or at least I don't remember, about, well, let me look at my notes. Oh, right, of course. So she has talked about how her father abandoned the family. So this could be touching on that. The way that she's talking about the pain sounds like a more fundamental pain, a more fundamental anxiety. And it has that look to it, right? I don't know, but I would imagine that it would be hard for this trauma not to be touched on in a situation like this, right? And it's possible that with Ramses and the experiment and everything, she really went all in on it and really took 1,000 leaps of faith and handed herself over to it, and felt like she was really opening herself up vulnerably to a situation that she could trust, similar to the way a child would. And to have this happen to her, have the rug pulled out from underneath her, it could feel very similar, right? So it kind of sounds like that might be happening. I don't know to what degree. Having said that, to be dumped by your fiance can make you feel very, very hurt and very dysregulated, even without past traumas, right?
Are you okay?
No, we called off the wedding.
What?
And I didn't see it coming. How am I supposed to not have him around and not be with him when I love him so much? Oh my God. Mom. It's so bad.
Oh, it's just so heart-wrenching. And I think a lot of people have this feeling on the show, but they just don't show it to us. They don't show it to the cameras, or they don't even display it for themselves. So, yeah, it's... And, I'll commend the show for actually lingering on this, because that's what's at stake here. And the people who think that this is all faked, I mean, my God. Do you think Marissa is making this shit up? If she is, she's the best actor who's ever lived. So, when people go on the show, it's for real. This is of reality television. This is reality, right? Are there some people that are on here disingenuously who are faking it? Yeah, but there's plenty of people who are on this and they're doing it for real, right? This looks like real. This is real reality TV, right? All right, well, that does it for that episode. Tune in next time when I continue watching. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.